So yeah, welcome to You and D podcast. I'd like to welcome my first guest, Chris Price. Chris, it's great to have you here, mate.
Yeah, hello. Nice to be here. Nice to be here.
No, it's great. Thank you, buddy. How have you been?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, thank you. Yeah, how are you, Dino?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. I'm tired, but I'm good.
Yeah, yeah, good. I mean, I'm a bit tired today. I drove all the way down from my parents, so long drive today.
Where did you drive down from?
Up near the kind of Doncaster, Sheffield area. My parents are still up north, so yeah.
Oh wow.
Down to good old Swindon, where we're recording right now.
But yeah, that's a long drive
Mm.
though.
Yeah, yeah. So there you go.
So Chris, I've got a few questions for you, mate. But I want to start off firstly with asking how and when did you come to faith?
Yeah, no. Okay, straight into it. Yeah, I came into faith. It's a bit of a weird winding story. So, my family are Christian. So yeah, there was always kind of some Christian influence. I went to like Sunday school a bit when I was younger. But I never really interacted much with that church. It was kind of a church that I went to as a child. You never 100% get a grasp on religion and the implications of God and everything when
Mm,
you're only like 10 years old or something.
yeah.
So, and it was kind of a church that a lot of kind of older people went to and parents went to, but it didn't really feel like my church or anything. So yeah, I went there for a little bit. My parents actually, their kind of relationship with faith is quite different from mine, and they stopped going to church after a while. And so I didn't go to church. So I didn't go to church through a lot of my teenage years. I didn't feel there was any need for me to pursue it in my own right. My parents didn't go. I sometimes had some exposure to the Bible and things like that. So still had some influences again, but yeah, very often on for quite a few years. And it wasn't until my second year of uni when I was dating someone at the time, and that relationship kind of ended. It broke down and then ended. And yeah, I kind of looked at my life at that point and wasn't really happy with the way things were. Didn't really know particularly why. I mean, I was going to a good uni, doing a good course, and I had nice friends and all the rest of it. But it just felt like, I guess, relationships are quite a big thing, and when they suddenly disappear on you, especially when you're not expecting them to, they leave a big hole. And I think part of it was me trying to figure that out. And so after a while of being single and kind of getting to grips with things a little bit, I ended up really feeling like I need to get to church when I went into my third year. And so, yeah, I didn't really have many Christian friends or anything at the time, or any kind of influence for that. I don't really know where that thought came from, even. But I just remember really thinking, I think I need to get into church. Like, I really feel like that's something I need to do. And it was something I'd put off before. But I decided I was going to really do it. So yeah, I had one Christian friend. I wasn't really aware that she was a Christian, but she was. And after me go to a couple of the churches and her coming along to kind of help me check them out, she suggested I went to the church she went to, and yeah, I went there for 2 years while I was at uni, for my last 2 years of uni, and it really kind of helped me to grow. They were great with students. I had a mentor that I learned a lot from, and yeah, just been growing on from there. So I guess that's the time when I would say I really kind of came into my own as a Christian. And then I was actually not too long ago, I had a confirmation of my baptismal vows at the church I go to now. So that was really cool. And yeah, just a chance for me to say, yeah, I am a Christian, and not just because my parents decided it or anything. I mean, obviously, it's actually because God decided it. In our perspective as Christians, at least. But that I was making my choice of my vocalization that this was what I was doing for my life. So, yeah, it's a long and winding and complex journey, but hopefully that
Yeah.
kind of summarizes it at least.
Yeah, and I mean, so I know a lot of people that have come to faith through the Alpha program, which is actually how I come to faith,
Yeah,
which was through Alpha. So mine was a bit different. So obviously, growing up for me, I grew up in an atheist family. Both parents were atheist or agnostic, from my mum's point of view, at least. And
yeah,
So church wasn't something I was spoken about growing up. I think maybe the one time I probably did go to church as a child was my dad, which was midnight mass, and he was probably there more for the free alcohol. So um, that was probably my only sort of insight to what church was like.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I suppose as I got to adult life, I really started to think about, sort of God and stuff like that. And I've always believed in a superior being to us, but I've never accepted a God in the terms of God. So, and I've always been quite an inquisitive thinking man. And I wanted to know, how could I sort of go deeper into this and sort of understand more and stuff like that. And I knew a Christian guy who lived nearby where I lived at the time with my mum. And I said to him, I've got a lot of these questions. I'm having some really bad dreams as well. Is there anything I could do about them? Because it felt quite a spiritual thing. And he said, why don't you try this alpha course? And I was like, mate, I'm not interested in going to an alpha course. With all these Christians
straight away, not going.
with all these Christians who are like so righteous and and they're so perfect. And it's the only time in my life where I've been happy to be wrong. it's, I had the best alpha table. I don't think there's been a better alpha table since. I am going to put that stamp on it. It was perfect. The people I met are still some of my closest friends now. And we've grown together as Christians, and we've gone on to do discipleship years together. And it's just a wonderful experience to be able to share with them, because you've been able to grow with them and, just share your raw self with them, which is a lot of people don't get to do because they don't have that sort of outlet of being able to go to an alpha or don't know it exists. So a lot of the time it's done the traditional way of, just biting a bullet and going to a church, which is so daunting for so many people.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like that was kind of my way of doing it. It was just bite the bullet and just decide I was going to go. But I grew up around that kind of stuff, so it's very different. And I had a friend who I could go with, who I knew was a Christian and who already went to that church. And lots of reasons why that's easier. But it's funny talk about alpha. I actually did an alpha for the first time when I came down to Swindon and everything and started living here. And started going to the church down here, and so that was my first exposure to it as well. But obviously, coming into it as someone who had some Christian background and who had been in church for the last couple of years, so a bit of a different kind of coming into it, but still monumental for my faith, I'd say. Like, I mean, just an explanation of what alpha is for anyone listening who doesn't know what alpha is. Basically, a lot of people, it's usually organized by some Christian people, but it's a course for non-Christians where you get to just come along and you get shown a video which kind of gives the Christian perspective in a very kind of nice laid back way about something, and then you guys get to talk about it and have a meal and stuff, or at least that's how it used to work until COVID, and now it's all online. I think we're just getting back to it not being online now, but they're all over the country. They're great. So obviously you've done one deal and so have I. And I found it just it was big for the spiritual side of things and just kind of filling in gaps that I didn't have. Like, I can't have a lot of kind of book knowledge. I think because I read the Bible a bit, and because my church I went to as a student was quite Bible heavy, like that was what I knew. But then there was a lot of stuff about, okay, well, what about these kind of areas that don't often get talked about? What about these things that aren't often in sermons? And what about people's actual story and the way that it's affected things in modern life and not just 2,000 years ago? So I thought it was really good for that. I've actually ended up leading an alpha course before and stuff. So it's also been a part of the way that I've grown in serving the church and things. Is I went from having never done it before to leading one myself, which that was probably one of my favorite things about alpha, was leading one myself. And that thing that you said, about seeing people grow and seeing them go through that and how that impacts them and things is it's really, really cool.
it's funny you say that because I've actually just, well, I'm actually in the progress of leading my first alpha.
Yeah.
And I mean, mine's online. So, and it's actually my ex-partner, my son's mother, and her family that I'm
Wow.
leading this alpha for. And it's great to see like these people that have known you for so many years, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
See the change in you, and then also you leading them in an alpha.
Yeah.
It
They want to see that for themselves.
yeah, and I love it. I mean, I'm absolutely loving seeing the lights turn on. It's it's just such a priceless experience to watch when you sort
Yeah.
of, as you would know, start to see with some people that are starting to get it. They're starting to
Yeah.
they're starting to really get into it.
Yeah. I think that's the main thing is it's just seeing people be interested and get enthusiastic about it. I think there's so many people who I mean, not to speak for anyone else, but I mean, I know I definitely kind of put off thinking about church and everything, and was like, you know what, I don't need it. And if God exists, then he doesn't just exist in churches, and so you know, and it's just nice to see when people are just happy to just get involved and to just talk it through. And if it's not for them, it's not for them. But at least they've actually thought about it, they've talked about it,
Yeah.
they've enthusiastically engaged in it, and they generally think that that is or isn't for them. It's just great to see that,
Oh, it really is.
rather than the kind of avoiding or the uncertainty that I guess that
Mm,
can leave otherwise.
yeah, yeah. And actually, it brings on nicely that you mentioned church because I think for me, one of the questions I do have is how do you feel the church has progressed over the years that you've been going?
The years that I've been going,
Yeah.
oof, well, that only gives us 4 years to play with. But yeah, so it's hard to tell because I mean, for me, I went to a very different church when I was up
Right.
in Sheffield at uni, and then I moved down to the church in here in Swindon, and so they're two very different churches. But I think the church I go to now is more of a modern church, and so I'll base it on that. So I think like usually more modern churches these days are they're more focused on getting people involved, on getting building a community, and on reaching out to people and making people feel like they're welcome and
Mm,
that they're included. I think that's a really big part of it, of just being included. I think church, like the old churches I used to go to when I was a kid and stuff, like I say, there's those kind of stereotypical buildings full of old people that they all feel a bit stuffy, and
yeah.
someone stands at the front and talks maybe a bit slowly, monotonely about some Bible passage.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, um, like in comparison to that, I think we're obviously that's not that inclusive because if you're not aware of that and you're not already in that culture, it all just seems a bit weird. And I think churches these days are they're selling themselves more as places where they're just welcoming people. It's welcoming people first, and then it's going into the nitty gritty of scripture second. Which it has some drawbacks as well. Obviously, the nitty gritty of the word of God is still important, and I think there's always a balance that people have to try and do with, okay, how much detail do we go into in this sermon,
Yeah.
and what level of difficulty of topics do we go into, and all that kind of stuff. But I think generally the church has got better being welcoming and inclusive and admitting that what, we're not a country where everyone's a Christian. We're not a country where everyone understands like all of Christian culture and everything. And we're not a country where everyone is happy to just throw themselves and get involved with that and read half the Bible. And we need to be able to just reach out to people anyway and welcome them in and see where they're at. And yeah, I'm glad that churches seems to be getting better at that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I mean, so obviously I've only got a couple of years experience in the church, but obviously what I've seen before I attended church sort of more frequently is the church I've seen before coming to faith is, like you said, very old fashioned, an old man at the front speaking very slowly and separating himself from the congregation.
Yeah, almost like a
And
lecture.
yeah, exactly that. And I think also it was always very white and very middle class, which,
Yeah, true.
still to this day is still a problem. And that's not going to be fixed overnight. And it's not going to be fixed next year or the year after. That's not being downbeat. That's just being a realist. It's going to take a long time to fix this. And I mean, I say that as somebody who is working class, and I do attend a church where there are a lot of middle class white people. But what I have noticed over the last 15 months is I have noticed more and more people coming from different ethnic backgrounds and different classes are definitely turning up on a Sunday. And that is something that actually is really heartwarming to see, because it really is the old-fashioned stereotype that you only go to church if you're middle class and you're white, because unfortunately it's easier, I suppose, the way people where I'm from see it. I can't speak for everybody, but certainly how I seen it, and I know a lot of people seen it, is if you're middle class and you're rich middle class and you're white, it's very easy to believe in a God because you've got no worries in life. You don't know what a bailiff is. You don't know what a provident loan is, but, because you've never had to struggle for anything. So it's very easy to believe in a God. Whereas when you struggle each day and your parents are taking up these loans, or your parents have got bailiffs, or your friends' parents have had bailiffs at the door, you sit there and think, oh, it's a different world. You can't envision this. You don't feel good enough to be in a church, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I will respectfully actually disagree with you there, Dino. I think there's lots of cultures and places in the world where people struggle a lot, and even struggle more, and even struggle because of their faith.
Yeah.
And still do happen. I think as well, it's important to remember that even people who are middle class, they might have different worries, but I think everyone feels like they're getting stuff wrong, that they're not as good as they necessarily should be, or that the worries that they do have, maybe smaller things seem more important when you have less to deal with, for example, and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I get what you're saying. I'm not saying there's no kind of merit in it, but yeah, I think that might be true to a level in this country because of the perspective we have on what Christian people look like.
Yeah.
But it is definitely not true of faith as a whole.
No.
And I think that's the thing, is that Christianity has been a cultural part of this country, of England, of the UK, and has been this kind of white, probably kind of fairly middle class establishment. Or not altogether that long ago, everyone would have probably have gone to church. But I think even when people did go to church, they would put on their Sunday best, and they would try to present themselves well, and they would try to act out in a certain way. And I think really that what people were trying to achieve, and what they were trying to look like, was basically what middle class kind of looks like to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Dressing a bit better, acting better, not swearing, not making sure you're well spoken, all those kind of things. And obviously there are people, lots of different classes that speak and act in lots of different ways. But I think that the way our culture saw, and the way that Christianity was as a kind of part of our culture, has made it's easier for middle class people to identify with it than it is for the working class.
Yeah.
Which probably, in their heads might well sound like what you were just saying, of like, oh, I have to deal with all these things, and there's so much going on, and I can't And I think especially one thing that you said that was really good was the thing of I think you said like I'm not good enough,
Yeah,
or yeah,
I think that's
yeah, and
the general consent, this sort of the general thing within the working class, especially if you're from sort of a rougher council estate. Again, I'm not talking all council estates. I'm just talking where I'm from. That you know, the churches that we grew up with were very big, and they were always headed by a rich vicar. And
yeah,
you know, people where I'm from certainly didn't feel good enough because of the reasons that I said. And again, I can only say that for the UK. I can't say that for somebody in Iran or Iraq that faces hardships, almost certain death for following Christ. It's
yeah,
it's definitely a material thing, and
yeah,
I think that is something that is so you know big in the UK is we hold so much sort of prestige on material items that we
yeah,
sometimes forget that actually the material items are just so irrelevant.
yeah. The house you live in or the job you do doesn't decide whether or not you can be a
Yeah,
Christian.
yeah, exactly that. And to be honest with you, Chris, even when I first turned up to the Alpha, I had that exact thought though. I was like, these people are all going to be rich. They're all going to be white. They're all going to, you know, it's there's going to be no diversity there. And
Yeah,
again, I say it again. I was happy to be wrong. It was,
yeah,
we had single mums, we had single dads, we had black people, we had, if I remember rightly, I think we even had some Asian people in the Alpha. And that is something that is really close to my heart, and it's something that I think in the future I want to go more into, which is sort of encouraging people from where I'm from to really sort of try to come to faith or try to
yeah.
make them
Start
realize.
thinking that they are actually good enough.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people where I'm from certainly do believe in God,
Yeah,
but a lot of it comes down to what their view on church is and what their view on the vicar is or an evangelist
yeah.
is.
They believe
And
there is a God, but they don't really know how to engage with that God. They don't
yeah,
know how to
yeah,
relate to it.
yeah. And that's sort of 90% of the problem is, especially when I go back to where I'm from to see some old friends, is trying to make them see that actually the church is just a building, the vicar is just a man,
Yeah,
and
100%.
the rest of it is just complete rubbish, really, in the nicest way possible. That actually it's not needed, even if you worshipped in a shed down on a scrapyard.
Yeah,
It's still the same place.
yeah. Well,
So
I mean,
yeah,
you look at things like the Bible, and well, I say things like the Bible.
yeah,
There's not really a lot else like it, but when you look at the Bible, you look at Jesus' teaching and things, and most of the time he's just like he's on a boat, he's
yeah,
on a hillside. He's, the most famous sermon is the Sermon on the Mount because
yeah,
that's where he was. There's no big massive cathedrals or anything. There are temples, and sometimes he teaches in those, but sometimes he doesn't. And like,
yeah,
it doesn't make the sermon any more or less important because of where he's giving it. Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And
I
he
think
truly was. Sorry, mate.
no, that's all right. I was just gonna say, I think there's that side to it, and then there's also just that there's like the material side to it, but there's also just this cultural side to it where also people, like I said, I think one of the things that you said that really hits the nail on the head, as you said, and it's just with the consensus in a lot of places is that not good enough thing. I think
Mm,
some of it comes from, like you say, that material thing of being like, oh, all these people are gonna be a certain way and have certain things, and they might look down on me or see me as an outsider because I don't have them or because my life's different. But I think there's also a thing of like looking down on themselves. I know a lot of people, this is where this is coming from. Like again, not making assumptions, but people that I know who say things like, "Oh, if I stepped into a church, then I'd set on fire, or like God would strike me down if I set
yeah,
on like."
yeah,
And it's this thing of thinking that they're not good enough, partially because their life doesn't work the same, but also because they don't act the same. Like the fact that they swear every now and again, or the fact that they like to go to the pub and have a drink with the lads, or something is making them worse than the kind of people that you get in church. And obviously, Christian faith is that Jesus forgives all our sins, but people feeling like they don't belong in that place, I think, is such an issue for material reasons, or for these kind of I guess imagined ethical reasons. Not to say that they're imagined as in minimizing them, but just in the fact that obviously from Jesus' perspective it doesn't matter.
Right, and that's so true. And it's something that I tell my friends a lot, and I actually heard it on another podcast. I'm a massive boxing fan, huge boxing fan, and I just watched Mike Tyson's podcast, and I think Tyson Fury put it perfectly, that when it's all said and done, and we're no more, everything we have now is gone. Even the body that we have is borrowed for a very short amount of time on this planet, and it will just go back to the earth. And the only thing we actually ever own in our life is the moments in time that we create. For me, having my son or achieving something, these are things that are real and that you can take. But the material things, they're all borrowed. When we're gone, everything that I own, this podcast, everything will all go, and it'll all be forgotten about. And the only thing I hope to God that I take with me is my memories. I hope to God that I get to take my memories with me, because the memories are what define you as a person. I think but the good memories and the bad memories are just something that you can learn from, and the people that we've loved and lost, and just those little moments in time that we've had. And I really hope that we get to take them to the next life, because I would hate the thought of having my mind erased and not remembering.
Yeah.
If you're following.
Yeah, no, I get you. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure, like, it's difficult when you're talking about things about the next life and or the new creation or heaven. Like, who knows what that will be like in complete certainty. I certainly don't, but I get what you're saying about memories for sure. And I mean, I can't imagine there's a mind wipe. I can't certainly say that there isn't, but I can't imagine there will be. No. It's not something I really thought about, but no, definitely they're the important things. And I think it's something that is very much within the Bible and within Christian teachings that's the case. I mean, and Jesus very much says the words of to that effect about the fact that on earth people can steal your stuff and your stuff decays and it rots and everything else, but your treasure in heaven is eternal. And and if you're looking for things in this life to take away, then do the things that are gonna bring you joy and are gonna bring God joy, and that's the stuff that matters, really.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think excuse me, it's something that I've learned. I mean, again, I've said it a few times now, but growing up the way I grew up, it's something that there are still struggles that I face today, even as a man of God. I still struggle with alcohol, as in I'm not an alcoholic, but I still struggle. If I have one beer, I want 10. And I quit smoking 2 years ago come January. But I know if I went to the pub with a few mates, I know that smoking and having a pint go hand in hand with each other. It's something I still struggle with. And I think that's another thing that people forget, that it doesn't matter what class you're from. We've all got our struggles, whether it be
100%.
Again, alcohol, smoking, porn, drugs. It doesn't matter what it is. Everybody's got demons. And so I think a lot, again, talking for myself, that was another thing that put me off church for so long. or wanting to be a Christian for so long, because it made me think, oh, well, I know I've got a problem, but these other people have got less of a problem. And it's
Yeah.
such a weird way of thinking, because the reality is that we're human and humans have problems. And,
Yeah.
what are big to some are small to others, and what are small to others are big to some. In every other areas that I really struggle with, even as a Christian, my mindset, what I look at, it's all still there. And because I'm a Christian, that hasn't magically disappeared. If anything, it's become harder.
Now you're actually trying not to do it.
Right, exactly. It's something that now I feel convicted about, whereas before it didn't matter because I didn't believe in a God. So, how do you feel about that? I don't know if you're in any kind of agreement with what I just said there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a bit of a different experience for me, but I think before I properly came to faith, um, I, I obviously I still believed in a God, and so, but there were still things that I would think, I guess that, oh well, that doesn't really matter because there's basically you could try and talk yourself out of anything. is how that kind of work is, especially if you're not in a church, if you're not around other Christians, if you've got no one to kind of hold you accountable or to kind of to kind of help you figure things out. And so, we all have the things that we struggle with. And so I would just tell myself that those things weren't a problem as well, and say that, oh well, that might have been something that Jesus talked about, but that was 2,000 years ago, and that's not really a problem anymore, but at the end of the day, when it came down to it, I did feel convicted about those things, and I think even at the time, even before I really accepted those things were problems, I still kind of knew. I still wasn't completely happy with what I was doing. I told myself it was okay, and I kind of half believed it, but I think there was always a part of me that knew actually I wasn't 100% happy. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come into church when I did, was because my kind of my first serious girlfriend was a non-Christian, and that relationship, is sex outside of marriage, and there was just kind of one of the reasons I wasn't going to church was because she was coming around every other weekend, and lots of things that I'm honestly not proud of, but things that I told myself were okay, because I told myself that oh well, like I say, if God's around, then why does he need a church? And sex might have been an issue back then before contraception, but these days, like, why does it have to be that way? And then when that relationship ended, and when I was put in this situation where I didn't have that kind of temptation, where suddenly these were just things that I had done at some point. There weren't things that I was doing. There weren't things I was getting any form of joy from. There weren't something that could fill any kind of hole. Like, I was left without that person, without all of those things, and just left to kind of deal with how I actually really felt about it. And I think that was why I ended up coming back to church, was because I realized that in actual fact I hadn't really liked any of that in the first place. And now that it was gone, I kind of went the other way. I was like trying to fix something, or trying to figure out where I was actually at. And so I think there's a lot of people who believe that Christians, I don't know, that they don't get things as wrong. Like you said, like, I'm broken, but somehow, and they're also broken, but somehow they're less broken.
Yeah.
An actual fact, like, I mean, a lot of Christians have to have a point, right, where they actually properly, for the first time, understand what it means for there to be a God, or what it means for the Bible to be true. Like, you can say that you understand that as someone who's in Bible school at 10 years old, or someone who's in youth club at like 13 years old or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, it's hard to properly understand all the implications of that. And I definitely didn't when I was younger. And that's why I kind of fell away. And I think a lot of Christians, even people who are raised in Christian homes, who actually really understand what their parents and what their family and what their pastor and what their, whoever else is involved in their life as a Christian is saying, that a lot of people fall away in some way. They realize that they don't really know what it's all about because it's something that they don't believe, but something that they've been told. And in making that transition, there tends to be a period where there's almost an in between. I don't know if that's everyone's experience, but definitely a lot of the Christians I've talked about, that is definitely the case. And there are a lot of struggles involved in that. There's a lot of things that we all get wrong. There's a lot of things that we will keep getting wrong into the future. And so, yeah, there isn't this, I get this perfect person who is born, who goes to Sunday school every day, who is the perfect, Christian child to their parents, and then goes to church themselves and kind of finds their own way and never gets it wrong and never falls away and never struggles with anything. That just doesn't exist. No. That's made up.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
And yeah, I think people just admitting that, and even for me, I wouldn't say. I mean, my family is fairly working class. I grew up in a mining village up in Yorkshire. My family never had a crazy amount of money or anything. We didn't go on holiday most years because we just didn't have the funds for that kind of thing, etc. But even so, I would say, because I've been going to university and everything and meeting people that were more middle class and everything, I'd say I never really came at Christianity from that kind of quite the same working class perspective, at least. But I would still say that I face some of the same struggles. Like, one of the best revelations I've ever had in my life, and I've said this to multiple people, is just realizing that no one's perfect. Whoever you're looking up to, whoever you think is such a good kind of role model or something to aim for, actually they're getting just as much wrong as you are. And you might not be able to see it on the outside, and they might be accomplishing some great things. That doesn't mean they're not also struggling with some pretty big things. Yeah. And I just think that's such a good thing to be honest about, and to kind of bring into the culture of the church in whatever ways we can,
Yeah. And actually, you'll probably find, again, I don't know if this is just me thinking this, but actually I think the more broken the people are, the better the church. That, for me, that is probably how I see it or how I view it. I think the more broken people, the better, because that's what church is about, right? The fact that we know we're broken, we know we get it wrong, but we go with other broken people who get it wrong, and we hold each other up, and we hold each other to account. It's that's something that I really enjoy. Is I know I'm completely broken, and actually being broken makes me realize how much more I need God. Because if you don't know you're broken, you go through life sailing by, not giving two hoots, because you don't think there's anything wrong with you. And that's not to say, and again, we're no better than anybody else,
Yeah.
That's just important to say. That I'm not trying to say that at all. But I think when you become a Christian, I think you become a lot more self-aware as well.
You should do, at least.
Yeah. But I mean, I suppose for me, sort of, I didn't really have an understanding of God or really sort of appreciate him when I first come to faith. It was a really weird moment in my life, because, I went from being this, there's got to be a great creator somewhere, but he's definitely not a God in my eyes, to, oh gosh, there is a God. I'm on a discipleship here. I'm now on an internship here. Oh wow, I'm now doing I'm now doing this, I'm now doing that, I'm now doing videos for the church I attend. And it wasn't until lockdown, and it was a massive pause button on everybody's life, that I sat there and I thought, oh, this sucks. And it took me probably about a month and a half, 2 months. And actually, I sat there and I thanked God for that moment because that's exactly what I needed. I needed to slow down because
Yeah.
I never actually I never actually took a break. It was like the domino effect. It was
Yeah.
just
One thing just led to another.
yeah, and I never actually took the time to understand my new life, that what I had signed up to, in a sense, that all of a sudden I was on my own, no friends, no pub, no social life whatsoever, and then it took that to truly make me understand the new life that I had,
Yeah.
and it was encouraging because you often see it in the Bible where people have had to take themselves away and strip themselves down to the bare basics, you know, when they've had to go off into the desert or whatever to just be alone. And
Yeah.
that was very much my wilderness time where I was alone and it was just me and God. There was no distractions. You know, there were no things getting in the way at all. It was just time to really reflect on this life. And, I honestly thought that I was going to go, well, you know what? I've been a Christian for a little while. I'm done with this. That's what I thought at first. And actually, what happened was my faith just grew and grew and grew and grew. And
Oh, wow.
I really fell in love with God at that moment.
Yeah.
Throughout all of it, the mental health issues I was going through at the time, the anxieties, the whatevers. It was actually at that moment in my life that my love for God became real and my understanding of God became real. And I sat there and I went, you know what? I actually really love you, God, for everything that you've done, for everything that you do, for who you are. And not just for being my God, but for being my friend, for being my brother, for being my counselor. And it took that to really, like I said, took that to make me fully understand what it's all about. And, time away from the church was probably a good thing because I was probably treating the church more as an idol more as an idol than God. It was church become the idol. It was like, oh gosh, I better go to church. I have to go to church. But the
Wow.
reality is, no, you don't. Like you should, but you don't.
Yeah.
But but you don't have to. Like what I'm trying to say is, don't make it the idol. Don't make church the idol, because
Yeah.
it's just another thing as having a celebrity as an idol, and you've got to keep God at front and center. And I know certainly I wasn't. That church was the front and center, and God was sort of a second thing to that. And so I've learned over the last year to keep God in one hand and church in the other, and learning to differentiate between the two.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy, isn't it? Because church is all about God, but yeah,
yeah,
in actual fact, that doesn't mean that you should always be throwing yourself into every single church thing and that.
no,
It's this bizarre thing of trying to make sure it's all balanced. I just want to say that there's so many, that's just a great story. I'm just sat here like that's just a beautiful thing, that
thank you,
what you were
mate.
describing of just understanding who God is and everything is such just it's just some great stuff. And I think just wanted to put that in there.
It is so. I think people sometimes, especially more experienced older Christians, sometimes forget that as well.
I
And
think everyone forgets it at least
yeah,
sometimes. Yeah, 100%.
yeah, it really is. And that's the beauty, though, I think, is if somebody is inexperienced or as experienced can always say something that's got a bit, carries its weight. It's I think there's been people that I've met along the way that have been Christians for quite literally 5 minutes and have said something to me, and I've gone, do you know what? No vicar's ever said that.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely biblical. and yet they don't think it is. And but really, it's completely biblical and completely mind blown at the same time. It's like, wow, where did that come from? Like,
Getting that kind of different perspective, isn't it?
Oh, mate, it really is. And I think for me, it's just like that. It's really plays heavy on the heart as well. Is just making sure people really remember how much we're loved, because I know a lot of people, and especially a lot of young girls and women, feel so unloved by everyone, including themselves, because they see Instagram, because they see Facebook, TikTok, whatever it be. They see all these people out there that look great. They see the Kim Kardashians, and they see the Rita Auras and the whatnots. But the reality is, Kim Kardashian doesn't look like Kim Kardashian. Like the picture she puts up looks nothing like her, and the picture somebody else puts up looks nothing like her, because it's been edited, photoshopped, edited again, and then airbrushed to look how it looks.
There's a load of makeup and or whatever it is, and good lighting and high quality cameras or anything else. Kim Kardashian's photos of her are not going to be the same thing as you wake up in the morning, blurry eyed and looking in the mirror.
Yeah. I wish I woke up looking as good as some of these people, but the reality isn't.
Yeah. But definitely true. And also, just like the whole thing of looking like Kim Kardashian does not make you more beautiful.
Nope.
Like, at least, that's my opinion. That, I mean, for one thing, even if you're all just talking about like visual beauty, like as human beings, we find so many different things beautiful, and in different cultures and in different areas of the world, this kind of status quo and the normal for what beauty is completely different, and so you can't say that, oh, I'm definitely not beautiful because I look like this, or because of this thing, because the chances are that there's someone out there who will find you beautiful, and even if people don't find you beautiful on a visual level for some bizarre reason, they're wrong anyway, because as a person you are beautiful, and God knows that, and yeah, you should know that too, because there is beauty inside all of us, I think, and trying to say that there isn't is just one of the best like lies that any industry has said. There's the clothes and makeup brands and everything else that are sold on this belief that you can't just be beautiful how you are. And yeah, I certainly would like to say that to anyone out there listening who feels that's true. You are beautiful how you are.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. And that goes to men and women as well. Because
definitely.
I mean, this whole sort of looking a certain ways, not just sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's not just sort of on women anymore. It's going on to men now. I sometimes hate looking at Instagram when I see David Beckham looking like an Adonis in a pair of boxers, and I think, geez, I don't look like that. And I sit there and I look at myself and I think, wow, you really are not as good as you think you are. And I have to remind myself.
You say, that's not the case. It doesn't make you worse off because he looks like that, or because you don't look like that.
I mean, that's totally cool. That's totally cool and totally true, because it's what's inside, it's what's in your heart that matters, not the aesthetics. Because I fear for the younger generation. I fear for my son, because if it's like this now, what's it going to be like in 10 more years? And it's going to go two or one ways. It's going to go completely away, and we don't have this whole ideology of how you should look anymore, or it's going to be tenfold worse. And it's, as a parent, that really bothers me, because you see a lot of these young kids these days and young teenagers who have got mental health issues and problems like that, because they don't look a certain way, or because somebody's got a pair of Nike whatever trainers. And I'm so grateful I grew up before social media. You know,
Yeah.
Facebook come out when I was sort of 14, 15, I think, if I'm right. But it was around that time I had Facebook anyway. And, the only comparison you really had with your friends then was who's got the best football boots, really. But even that wasn't really such an issue back then. I suppose because you didn't have this social media presence.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a little bit younger than me, Chris. So what was it like for you? Was it similar?
Well, funny enough, actually, I didn't really get on Facebook until I was about 14, and obviously back then, like we didn't have at least not at that age, I didn't have like Snapchat or Instagram
Mm,
or any of these things. So although I had Facebook, I mean, I don't really remember people posting that many pictures or me bothering to look at people's pictures that much. I think, yeah, it's something that is definitely growing and developing more in kind of in the last, I would say, kind of 5 to 10 years, rather than one than when I was a child. Again, probably luckily so. Um, but yeah, I think I definitely agree with what you're saying on that, though. That there's it's comparison, isn't it? And comparing
yeah,
yourself to other people is so easy now that you can open up this little, black box in your pocket, and it will tell you what other people are
yeah,
wearing, how other people are doing, all the amazing events that are going on, all kind of near you or further afield, or that have got like your favorite celebrities at them or whatever it is. Um, and people put their best kind of foot forward with these kind of situations, don't they? It's always an
yeah,
idealized version, and I guess that's the thing is we've always had some level of comparison. You've always been able to look at your friend and go, like you say, oh, they've got better football boots, or even just the whole thing of looking at Christians, as we were saying earlier, and saying,
yeah,
oh, well, they're doing better off than I am. But it was less accessible, and the
yeah,
people who you felt like that about were probably your friends, and you could talk to them. And when you did talk to them, you realized actually that they had problems as well. Whereas people who look up to celebrities and big famous people and people who are idealized and who have whole teams around them making them look good, they don't see the problems these people have.
no,
They don't see how these people are actually just the same as them. What they do see is supposedly how much better they are than them, and they're not.
yeah,
uh, and I definitely think that is more accessible and more of a problem. Yeah, and it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. I mean, how do you stop that? How do you get people to understand that actually they're just as good as all the people they see on their Instagram feeds?
oh yeah, yeah. I think luckily enough for us, as men of faith, is we have a God that tells us we are just as good,
Yeah,
and
very very much so.
we are on an equal playing field with these people, and
Yeah,
that's such a joy to have because obviously I know before coming to faith, I've been on both spectrums of things. Like I said, grew up without much, grew up, on a bad, in a not a bad area, but a rougher area, and you know, and I've also been on the other side of the spectrum where I've had a bit of money, where I've not had to worry about anything. I've not, you know, when I've gone shopping or I've gone and bought new clothes, I've not had to look at the price tag of things. And, you know, actually, I felt worse when I had money, when I had a bit of money, than I did when I was broke. You know,
yeah,
it's a really weird feeling to have because my whole life I wanted to have this money. I have a bit of money, or not worry about money, not worry about putting the gas on, or not worry about putting the electric on. It was, it was always one of those things that I just wanted to get out of that mindset of worrying about it. And then all of a sudden, when I had it, I was more miserable because the worries were still the same. I worried about how much money I was losing.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's it's something that I find bizarre. Again, I've never been middle class and never will be middle class, but it's something that I found that between the working class, the middle class, and the upper class, they all have one great thing in common. They all worry about money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like every single one.
And even more fundamentally, they all worry.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if you don't worry about money, like everyone worries
Worries.
about something.
Yeah. And you know, I'm so grateful for the life I have now where I'm not rich, not by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm not and I do have to look at the price tag of things, but I'm also not broke like I used to be when I was growing up. And you know, it's something that now that I sit here and I think, what do I actually need or what do I actually want? And it's, you know, it's something that has come to me, especially in faith, where I sit there and think, you know what, I don't want anything. I've got everything I need. I've got food in the fridge. I've got food in the cupboards. I've got a roof above my head. What do I need? Or what do I want, really? I mean, it's easy to want, but I think once you become content in what you have, especially within a faith setting, which is, I think, a lot of people come to that way thinking, you
Yeah.
don't want for anything anymore.
Yeah. I think sometimes, like for me personally, like there are things that I perhaps want for, but they find that like you say when you start worrying about these kind of things, when you start for those things to become a big part of the way you're thinking about everything, and that's really kind of weighing you down, that you can hand it to God. Like you say, we have this God who tells us that no matter what, we are valuable to Him. That the fact that we don't have certain things or that we don't act a certain way doesn't make us inherently less valuable. And even when we do things that are like bad, just objectively bad, that He forgives us for them, that we're still then, because we're forgiven, just as valuable.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think yeah, coming to that place of as you said, like contentedness is, yeah, I think that's such a powerful thing for Christians, because we don't need to have to reach for anything else, because the thing that I guess is should be the most important to us, God, is telling us that we already have everything that we need. It's hard to remember that all the time. I certainly don't go around like some kind of completely zen, kind of calm person at all times, because I know that I have everything I need and God will provide
yeah,
all. And you know,
yeah,
I wish I could worry that little, but I definitely can't say that I never worry. But yeah, definitely agree that that contentedness is such a great blessing, and something that, yeah, it's almost like what you were saying earlier about kind of stepping back from the church and things were like go go go, and then actually when you took a bit of time away, you realized who God really was. And I think that's the case for lots of things in life, and that when you're caught up in it all, you stress and you worry and you're all go on so many things, and then when you step back, you realize actually I can be content, and actually I don't need to worry, and actually yeah, God does exist, and actually things are okay, and I'm okay, and
yeah,
you know what these other people are doing or what they look like on Instagram doesn't actually really matter.
no,
And yeah, that's that kind of being able to take everything to God is just incredible. It's
yeah.
just incredible.
It really is. It really is. It's just such a nice feeling to have. And again, I just want to make it quite clear that yes, I do still worry. I obviously still worry about things. I worry about all sorts of things that you know.
If you told me you did, I wouldn't have believed you.
I'm the biggest warrior in the world. I worry about everything, you know, not, you know, tiny things that are so insignificant to other people, but to me, they're huge. You know, I worry about really silly things like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and go, "Where's my birth certificate?" So, you know, or where did I put my phone, or whatever.
Yeah,
It's
very relatable, can say.
you know. So, and I worry about big things. You know, I worry about my son and his schooling, and so those
Yeah,
worries haven't gone. I was talking more purely from a material point of view, that I don't really want anything really. I'd like,
yeah.
you know, it's not completely true. Of course, there are things I want, but you know,
No, you don't feel that you need them
I
anymore.
don't feel like I need them. No, exactly that.
Yeah,
And
I get that. I get that.
it's something that I spoke to our vicar about actually. I had a meeting with him a couple of weeks ago, we were talking over things about when I come to an alpha, and I jokingly said to him, and I say jokingly, it's more serious than I probably let on, but
Yeah.
being a coming to faith is sometimes the best and worst thing that's ever happened to me, because even if I walked away, I know the truth, and
Yeah.
I know there's a God that's holding me account for everything that I do, and it's the most wonderful thing, but also the worst thing, because there are so many things that I did and I still do that are just wrong. And
Yeah.
I always thought I was happy. Again, living in this material world where I wanted. And I'm one of these people, I can't enjoy much. I always, if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would think, that's great, but what's next? Or,
Yeah.
when I met my son's mum, I thought, this is great, but what's next? Or after my baptism, I remember vividly saying to one of the vicars at our church, that's great, but what do I do now? And
Yeah.
it's, I always thought I was happy. And those struggles that I talked about there haven't gone away. And I spoke about that a little bit earlier about the struggles that I face still haven't gone away. But I always thought I was happy before faith, that I would be happy going out and partying or taking something that I shouldn't have taken, or going off with somebody I shouldn't have gone off with. And it took my vicar the other week to say to me, well, Dino, were you really happy though? Because when I seen you, you certainly didn't seem that happy.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it took a guy that, I've known for a few years now to point that out. And it really made me think. And it took me back a little bit to think, wow, maybe I really wasn't happy, because clearly I didn't portray myself as happy.
Yeah.
Even though
And,
even though at the time I felt happy, I obviously from the outside didn't seem happy.
and when you look back on that now, reflecting on that, does that change things? Do you
Oh
still feel like you were happy, or?
God, no, no. Like I was miserable. You know, it was, without going into too much detail. I couldn't have a serious relationship with a woman because, for whatever reason, or I couldn't enjoy a beer because it always led on to 10 more. You know,
Yeah.
and it. Yeah, I couldn't have been happy, and I wasn't happy because I never held myself to account. And now, I mean, I'm not happy all the time, but I'm a lot happier now. You know,
Yeah.
It-
I think again it comes to like kind of almost stripping back the layers, doesn't it? And like
yeah,
you said about being in wilderness time and everything. I think, yeah, coming to Christianity, I think it takes a real honesty, I mean, not that all Christians are honest, but I think for you to say, you know what, actually, I believe there is a God and that He knows better than I do, and the stuff that I've been doing was wrong. I think that takes a real step, and yeah, it's means that when you're actually happy, that it's stripped back a bit from all those things that you used to tell yourself.
yeah,
That the kind of, yeah, I definitely, like I say, with me myself, like I 100% relate to that. That there were things that I told myself I was happy doing. There are things that I told myself would that I thought would make me happy, that I deliberately sought after. And now looking back, those things didn't actually make me happy. They actually caused me a lot of stress,
mm,
or they made things harder. They made it harder for me to be a good son, a good student, and you know, you might, I guess, like at the time, I just thought that, oh well, if these people don't think that I'm good, that's their problem, not mine. But now I look back and I realize that actually, I could have been doing, I not that I could have been better, I guess, if that's the wrong term, but that I could have been much happier in those relationships and in those places if I hadn't had all that other stuff getting in the way. And once I became a Christian and I started admitting that that stuff actually was in the way, and I started stripping that back, it became, and my happiness became much more real and much less problematic and much more genuine, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd agree with that
Yeah.
of for you.
100%, mate. Chris, I've loved this conversation that we've had.
Yeah.
I mean, I always love our conversations, even off cam, but off cam, but off
Good to
it,
hear. Good to hear.
But mate, honestly, I couldn't be any more grateful for you coming along. I really couldn't.
No, I'm grateful to have the opportunity. Honestly, it's hopefully the first episode of a very good podcast. Everyone will have to make sure that they tune in for episode 2.
Hopefully so. But Chris, I just want to leave you with one last question.
Yeah, go for it.
So, what would you like your legacy to be long after you're gone?
Yeah, and this is something that I've thought about before. And the honest truth is, the exact details I'm still figuring out. I'm actually in the process of kind of leaving my current job and going and doing a bit of traveling. I'm still in my kind of mid-20s, so taking that last-ditch attempt to kind of get out before I've got a mortgage and children and other things, meaning I can't leave. No offense to you, Dino. Your son is great, but yeah. And so part of that is trying to figure out what exactly I want to do, like what I'm going to do. But I think ultimately it comes down to, if I could realize God's plan a little bit on this earth, which is a very Christian way of saying, if I can make this world a better place, if I could show people that they're loved, and if I could just kind of, I think humanity generally does a fairly good job, not a perfect job by any stretch, but a fairly good job of keeping moving forwards. I don't think we'll ever live in a time where we get everything right, but we usually live in a time where we're getting things a little bit more right than we used to. That, any time in human history, you look back 50 years and probably people were getting it worse. I'm not sure if that's always been the case, but definitely the kind of modern era, that seems to be the case. And I'm hoping that trend continues. And if I could be someone that puts the next rung on that ladder, the next step on that stairway, that would be great. And I don't know what that looks like, but if it means that people feel more loved and more connected to God, then I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, mate, I love that. I really do love that. That's it's just that's profound, because I am lost for words, which is quite a rarity.
Also a bit problematic for a podcast. You need to sign us off here.
Yeah, I mean, I do get lost for words, but not usually by what people say, usually by what the distractions in my head. So, but Chris, I love that answer. I think it just sums you up as well. It sums up your selflessness and just you as a man and your character. It's just a perfect way to end.
Oh no, I'm speechless. I didn't expect such kind words. Thank you very much.
That's brilliant, mate. Thank you for your time.